from the Denver Broncos Media Center, welcome to Broncos Country Tonight with Ryan Edwards and Benjamin Allbright.
Welcome to Broncos Country Tonight, breaking down the Broncos win over the New York Jets 26-0. A shutout at home in front of the home crowd, and their home opener was just what the doctor orders. The Broncos are now 3-0 on the season. They head into a bit of a tough stretch. We'll get to that in just a second. But, Ben, let's first sort of enjoy this win. Talk about what it means. I think we're going into this game, the expectation kind of was, hey, the matchups all favor the Broncos. If they don't win this game convincingly, there are more questions than answers. But at the same time, it does feel like you come out of this one and there still are some questions about this team.
Yeah, I think there's a big question. Is this a mirage? You know, you're 3-0 against three teams that are combined 0-9. And so I think that's really where we're at with this. Now we've played the preseason 2.0, as it were. We all knew coming into this three-game stretch that it was going to be an easier stretch. I think we're at the point now where it's time to look forward to the Ravens and see if this 3-0 start is a mirage or if this team really is what we think it is. And I felt like the Broncos had some other opportunities yesterday they didn't take advantage of. I felt like they could have put more up. I also felt like they were playing a bit conservative, and that's probably because you had a Ravens game next week and you had this game well in hand. So, I think you had two things that you wanted out of this game. You wanted to come out with a W and you wanted to come out healthy, and they did one of those.
Yeah, it's a good point you bring up, by the way, about playing conservative, because that's the kind of vibe I got rewatching the game a couple of times this morning. I got the vibe that you ran it 37 times, you passed it 25 times. You were up most of the game, so that makes sense. The script would go that way. Game, but it wasn't like you were having a lot of success running the game. You were really trying to figure some of that stuff out. You had a couple of injuries there to your offensive guards. But it definitely felt as though, and people pointed this out on Broncos React, sort of felt like the Broncos were kind of coming into this with a sense of maybe we don't have to show everything. Maybe we don't have to do everything in order to get this win, get out of here. And as you put, try to remain healthy, even though that didn't end up being the case.
Right. Teddy Bridgewater, no touchdowns. But I'm not holding that against him because really they got vultured by the goal line stuff, by the goal line carries. So I'm not really holding that against him. I know everybody thinks I hate Teddy and all this stuff, which is ludicrous. But
you're cautiously optimistic.
Yeah,
You've moved off.
Cautiously optimistic. We'll see. Like this Ravens, Steelers, Browns stretch will really show you what this team is. These next three games will show you what this team is. We know they're capable of beating bad teams. That's a step in the right direction.
It's something they haven't been.
They're going to win more than 5 games this year, but that's a step in the right direction. But are they competitive? And we don't know that. We don't know the answer to that, and we won't know the answer to that until they play the next 3 games.
But, of course, they did beat these teams convincingly.
Well, you did what you needed to do. You went in and you beat bad teams convincingly. And that's the hallmark of a team that's on its way back to being competitive, but we don't know again if they're going to be competitive. We'll find that out in the coming weeks. As far as this game goes, not coming out of there healthy, that's a big blow. KJ Hamler, that's a big blow. I know he and Teddy didn't really have the connection that KJ and Drew did, but they still not having that guy that can take the top off changes how defenses can play you, and so they're going to have to figure that out. As far as the other things go, the guards, I think they're going to be okay. I think we're going to wind up with an okay situation on both of them. There's some other stuff going on today. We'll have the answers to that soon, but I think we're going to be okay on both of them. And then you lost a special teams linebacker who got dinged up, and that's I don't want to say that's not a big deal, but kind of in the grand scheme of things, relatively not. Boone will probably be back this week, start practicing. We'll see if he can go. I would call it questionable at this point. Ojimudi will not be available for this game, so just so everybody knows that. And then Bassie will be back here soon, too, in a couple of weeks. So there'll be some guys coming back. You have Darby, Judy, Bassie, Ojimudi, Boone all coming back in the next couple of weeks. That ought to excite Broncos fans.
Yeah, they'll get an influx of talent. And, KJ Hamler's ACL tear is a big hit only because it's the depth that you were already tested without Jerry Jeudy. So what's the answer? What's the short-term answer? Do you go make a trade? Do you bring in a free agent? How do you think the Broncos view that loss coupled with the Jerry Jeudy loss that's going to be at least a month and a half to 2 months?
Yeah, you're looking at least, I think you're looking at least 6 weeks for Jerry still.
Yeah.
I'll say this. I don't think the Broncos are going to trade for a wide receiver, okay? And I also don't think Josh Gordon is in their plans based on whom the people I've talked to. Could Golden Tate be in that mix? Potentially. Could John Brown be in that mix? Depends with the sickle cell stuff. They need to check that. But, yes, they're doing their due diligence. Andy Isabella could be in that mix. There are some names that are in that mix. They're looking around, trying to do due diligence on some things. I think Seth Williams gets the promotion this week, and they try to figure it out, as the week goes along in terms of getting a body in.
And meanwhile, you got Kendall Hinton, who's had a couple opportunities. He had a reception in the Jaguars game. Deontay Spencer and his speed might become a little bit of a factor. They tried to get him involved in this last game, but it was that quick screen that just went nowhere. In fact, it went -3 yards. So there's guys on this roster. They've had a lot of depth at wide receiver. They just haven't had a lot of starting depth and at least starting experience. But guess what? Guys like Tim Patrick, that's exactly how they made their name in this league, is they were those guys. He was one of those guys. He was a guy in the practice squad that got an opportunity, and now he's basically one of the best wide receivers in the league at not having drops. I think 70 plus 80 almost receptions now, or 80 targets without a drop. So you have to at least give credit there where it's due. I'm not saying these guys are going to beat Tim Patrick. I'm saying that the opportunity is presented, and hopefully one of them steps up.
Well, Patrick and Sutton are going to get theirs. It's who's going to be the next guy. And so whether that's going to be Hinton, who will get some stuff, but he's not really a deep threat. He's an intermediate threat. Spencer, who has not shown that he's much of a receiver at all, more of a punt returner. And the list goes on. Seth Williams, Tyree Cleveland, those guys had drop issues during camp, and I'm not sure they're complete receivers at this point. So you're going to have to figure that out. And I think they need somebody who can take the top off or threaten to take the top off. I've had some people float some stuff to me. I don't think they're trying to trade the Texans for Brandon Cooks. That'd be awesome, but I don't think they're going to do that. Josh Gordon the last time Josh Gordon was good was 2013. I don't understand the appeal there. I mean, he played in the fan-controlled football league and was hardly dominant. I don't know what he's got left in the tank.
What about a guy that was just here on Sunday in Denzel Mims, who keeps being a healthy scratch?
They are trying to trade him. I'll tell you that. The Jets are trying to trade him. The problem is I don't know what he brings to the table that you don't already have from Tim Patrick and Cortland Sutton. I think he's just those guys. He's more of a long strider, long speed guy, and you're looking for a quick, slot type receiver that can take the top off. So I'm not sure he really fits that. Golden Tate is interesting simply because of his value after the catch. He's one of those guys that is one of the best after the catch guys in football. If he still has a little bit left in the tank, he can play the slot. And
how is he in the locker room?
That's the problem.
That's the problem. That's what I know about him.
That's the problem. You bring in a guy in who is a bad teammate. A guy who had relations with his quarterback's wife. You bring in that guy into a locker room. I don't think so.
Okay. So let's get back to the game here for just a little bit. What else impressed you? I thought Malik Reed had a fantastic game. Draymond Jones had a fantastic game. Of course, you had the interceptions with Justin Simmons and Caden Stearns. Defensively, when you get 5 sacks, you allow – so they get that last drive of 26 yards before Caden Stearns' interception. And to get that, they had to sort of create it with timeouts, right? They called timeouts so the Broncos kicked the field goal. They had a minute left to drive and get 26 yards. The Broncos have given up 136 yards of offense up to that point. Mm-hmm. Just unbelievably dominant. You have back-to-back weeks now with that defense giving up under 200 yards of total offense. And that, for me, is something that really plays against almost anybody.
Yeah, and I hopefully that does continue. Again, you're playing mostly rookie quarterbacks and Daniel Jones. So 2 rookie quarterbacks in their second and third starts and Daniel Jones. So, there's grain of salt a little bit with that. I don't want to let the air out of the balloon. I don't want to be wet blanket guy. I'm just trying to be realistic. For me, until they prove it against worthwhile competition, we're in pause. We're not gonna down the Broncos, but I'm in pause about them being a real 3-0. I saw Kansas City go 13-0 a couple of years ago. And they played it was because they played all these terrible teams with backup quarterbacks. They just got the luckiest schedule on earth, and then they lost 3 of their last 6, and then got bounced in the playoffs right away or whatever it was.
But for what it's worth, is per DVOA, the Broncos have had the 5th easiest schedule, and it's not like the teams ahead of the Broncos are necessary. Russell Wilson, the Seahawks, had an easier
Their
schedule
defense is terrible.
Via DVOA, and they are not a better team right now, at least by record by performance at some
I'm not
points.
just mad at the Seahawks for blowing my parlay. I'm also mad at them for being terrible on defense. And, Pete Carroll and that whole setup, they used to run the ball a lot, and that kept their defense off the field. Well, you're not gaining yards against my defense if they're not on the field, right? Well, now they're throwing the ball more, and their defense isn't as good as it used to be, and that's created a bit of a problem there. So I don't know how long Pete Carroll's going to be there, that much longer he's going to be. He's 70 years old. I mean, it might be time to pass things off. Overall, though, there are things to be optimistic about. I don't want to be just negative the whole time. I felt, everybody keeps talking about Javonte, and he's got better acceleration, but Melvin Gordon's a better running back. He just is. Melvin Gordon doesn't take negative plays. He doesn't keep getting stuffed in short yardage situations, and Javonte does. Javonte keeps getting stuffed in shoulders.
Javonte breaks more tackles.
He does, and he's got a little better acceleration, but Melvin breaks tackles too.
I don't feel like this has to be an either-or. You and I do that a little bit on the radio, but in the end, it's not an either-or because they both are going to get touches.
You're right, and that's the thing. And you want Melvin Gordon to do well this year. Let me tell you something, Broncos fans. The reason you want Melvin Gordon to do well is because if he does well, he's going to get a big money contract at the end of the year from someone else because he's going to get a contract from someone else. And that's going to add to your compensatory formula. You're going to get draft picks back for that. You want Melvin Gordon to ball out this year and then go somewhere else. If you're a Broncos fan, that's what you want.
And it doesn't have anything to do with
Javonte was always going to be the guy next year anyway.
And it doesn't have anything to do with your fantasy team.
At all. He's like my fourth running back.
I mean, whatever.
If we counted bench scoring, sure. But
anyways, last couple things here, though. On the offensive side of the ball, Teddy Bridgewater, another efficient performance, as it turns out, 76% completion rate. No passing touchdowns, no interceptions. So, like I said, very sort of just controlled, right? Efficient, more or less. I still feel, again, third down's got to be something they got to work on. There are certain moments in the game where they need to close out, and I think that's where people kind of go to the offense and say, okay, well, yeah, Javonte Williams had that fumble. That's something you can clean up. And third down, there are certain penalties they got on offense that, especially Noah Fant, that had. But I'd say overall, it felt like a game where the Broncos had this intention of we know we favor in these matchups. Let's just do this thing. Let's go out there. We'll get the win. We don't have to overexert here. And again, that might show you a little bit of just really how talented this team is, because that didn't feel like a game where the Broncos really gave their A performance. And I think they know that.
Yeah, and again, I think they were playing it conservative to do all that.
Yeah.
You talked about Teddy being efficient. That throw to Kendall Hinton was horrendous. He threw into triple coverage and threw it high.
KJ Hamler? Yeah.
I'm sorry, and Hamler, and threw in triple coverage high and hung his receiver out to dry.
Yeah, that was uncharacteristic, I'd say, of what we've seen so far in the first 3 weeks.
That's not really what we've seen so far, but that was a bad throw, and it needs to be noted as a bad throw for the other good throws that he did. Overall, I thought they played pretty well on offense. Overall, I think they could have done more. I thought a couple of those field goal drives could have been touchdowns, so they put a little more into it. But it's nitpicking at that point, and I don't want to get into that.
Yeah, I mean, your fourth and goal at the one, you could have technically gone for it there, but right. In the end, you're right. You had the game in control. All right, well, as the week wears on, we'll turn the page to the Ravens. I think that's what a lot of people are really excited about, anxious about. They want to see how this team performs. So that's what we'll do coming up in the next episode of Broncos Country Tonight. For Benjamin Allbright, I'm Ryan Edwards. Thanks for watching.